You've probably heard it many times before. Focus on your passion and the results will come. And this is coming from a passionate person. But having more than 400 plus hours of coaching, I've understood from coaching different people that passion isn't enough and there's so much more to it. Now, a big question I want to ask you is, are you tackling your goals based on passion alone? This is what I want to dive into. I want to dive deep into this. So let's have a clear understanding of what truly drives success, which is really centered around systems, values, and aligning with your goals. Again, if you like videos like this, make sure to like and subscribe. And of course, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Michael Tabirade. I'm an independent management consultant and founder of the consultancy, The Mastery Group. Now let's get into it. So the limitations of passion. Let's get into this. So I have this up right here, okay? And the reason I have this up is because I really want to talk about what passion is. Now the reality is, passion is something that is exhilarating. Passion is something that is enabling you to want to take action in the moment, which is a good thing. And it fuels action. It is the thing that ignites the fire. But passion alone is not enough. We know this already. Now, it's not to say that passion is not required in order for you to be successful. It is just saying that you need to be a bit more sophisticated. We live in a world where it's full of systems, it's full of meritocratic different spaces, and we have to be in a space where we understand how we articulate value to the marketplace. And so you may be passionate about something, but the marketplace may not be. And you know this based on what they're willing to pay up. So I've been talking about this whole idea of how do you communicate your value? Yes, passion is one way of doing that, but it may be very scatty and messy. You need something more than just talking about your passion or feeling passionate. And so with that in mind, you have to understand what drives you. What drives you to be in a position to actually take action? And I start thinking about different types of motivation. Okay. So we can think about things like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay. You have things like the Herzberg's factors. Okay. So this is really talking about the whole cat and stirrup situation. So let's say, for example, you're at work and you're doing a pretty decent job, but you could do better. And so what your boss does is, if you make X sales or whatever it may be, then I'll give you X bonus. And so that is carrot and stick. Whereas there are more intrinsic factors rather than extrinsic motivations that drive us to move forward, such as values and growth and ambition, all these different things. So bear this in mind. I also start thinking of Daniel H. Pink's theory behind drive, and he talks about purpose, autonomy, and I think it's meaning. And he essentially saying that if you have these three factors, you're a driven individual. Now, purpose can be broken down into so many different factors, but essentially it is your reason for being, so to speak, based on what you've told yourself. And there's a lot of context behind that stuff. Autonomy is giving you that sense of will that you can exercise how you want to. And meaning adds depth to what you're doing. And it's the depth factor that allows you to go farther, longer, and higher. And so when really thinking about motivation, it's putting these things into place. I've spoken about a lot of theories: Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-determination theory, Daniel H. Pink's theory, etc., etc. But one that strikes me as quite useful is one that I was taught when I was in my coaching space, when I was practicing. And essentially it talks to the fact that there are four different factors that we are motivated by, mainly two, but four in total. So that is achievement, learning, joy, and meaning. Usually there's one dominant with a subcategory that sits within a space. So for me, if I'm thinking about those four, maybe it's ambition. Ambition is the top one. And then secondary to that is learning. I want to feel like I'm actually having an experience that is allowing me to improve. Okay, it's adding to my intelligence, it's allowing me to make decisions that are better. So these are all different ways in which we can get motivated. Now, thinking about that, of course, motivation is fleeting and it's not enough. But there is more to it. So I want to talk about the essential elements beyond just passion and motivation. And this is where we start thinking about willpower. Now, what do I mean by this? Now, at the beginning of the year, there were three main factors that I started to think about in terms of exercising my will, exercising, realizing things that I want in my reality. What do I mean by this? I'm talking very ethereal and esoteric. The three words that I picked out was intelligence, then there was routine, and then willpower. For me, intelligence is your ability to change your behavior in specific conditions, thereby improving your effectiveness and efficiency and productivity over time. So, what I'm basically saying is you're learning from your environment and you're knowing how to be better, be bolder, be brighter. That's intelligence. When thinking about routine, it's essentially a set of tasks that you do repeatedly in order to get the same result, essentially, okay? Or a desired result or an expected result. And then when we think about willpower, what we're thinking about here is self control. How do I put myself in a situation where I have self control, where I'm able to do things based on will, based on when I want to do it? Like passion doesn't answer those questions. Passion is just a set of feelings that makes you feel ignited inside, that want you to take action, but isn't consistent and it's not necessarily reliable. And so we're talking about creating an environment where you can create persistence. And so thinking about that, we start understanding how we can improve. Now, I start thinking about a situation where I was writing my books back in 2016, I want to say. And I thought I was going to write my books in 1 month. I've got a story about this on my YouTube channel somewhere. And essentially, it didn't take me a month. It took me about a year or so. But I had to be consistent and persistent with my pursuit. What did that mean? It meant that I chose specific days to write and specific days to go out. I only went out on Thursdays and Saturdays. I remember my friend tried to meet up with me. It took us 3 to 4 months before we met up. I made sure that I stuck to writing in the morning and in the evenings. And when my laptop broke down, then I used my phone. I made sure that I was consistent even when I got repetitive strain injury in my right hand. What did that mean? It meant that I started to use my left hand, okay? Persistence. There was always a way. Now, some people may say that is stupid, it's idiotic. Why would you do something like that? It's because I had something in mind. I was motivated. I had the passion, but I set up the right environments to ensure that this wasn't a fleeting thing and that I was actually sticking to the goal, committing to the cause. And this is where commit to a cause came from, one of my many sayings that I have. And so before we continue, the deeper question I want to ask you is, what habits or principles keep you moving forward when passion fades and motivation dips? I would love your strategies and your thoughts below. So let's encourage each other. Let's leave our comments below. And of course, as always, I help business leaders build their portfolio careers, approaching it like an independent consultant. It's about achieving what I call the consultant mindset. So if this is something that you're interested in, then feel free to complete the form below. And yeah, let's get crack-a-lacking, especially with the new year looming. All right, let's get into it. So the next major bit is really centered around building sustainable motivation. What does this actually mean? Well, essentially, building sustainable motivation is all centered around creating the right environment for success. You want to create an environment for success. What does this actually mean? It means that you stick to something called schemes. I say this again and again and again on this channel. SCHEME stands for space, cash, help, equipment, materials, expertise, and systems. How do you have these in place in order for you to excel? So for example, what space do you have? Literally, what room do you have to do what you need to do? When thinking about cash, what money is in the bank? What disposable income do you have in order for you to execute on your goals? When it comes to help, do you have some sort of accountability buddy or some sort of virtual assistant or someone who can actually do the work for you? This is where you delegate using things like the Eisenhower matrix. You delegate what's important, urgent, X, Y, and Z, all of that kind of stuff. So I could go on and on and on, but you get the point. The next thing you need to start thinking about is what sort of support systems do you have? Now, I spoke about this when speaking about help, okay? But I have found a great thing in accountability buddies. Accountability buddies should not be overlooked. I have many different types of accountability buddies, or I did at least anyway. And essentially, it is meeting with this person either on a weekly, bi weekly, or monthly basis. You spend anywhere between 1 to 2 hours talking about what they're doing, and they're talking about what you're doing. And you have at least 2 to 3 different goals or metrics that you're trying to achieve. I'm telling you, whether you want to do that thing or not, you're going to do it because you don't want to come back each time embarrassed at the fact that you haven't achieved your goal. This is how it works. This is how it's supposed to work. It's not about your feelings all the time. It's about execution. It's about getting it done. It's about the result. Done is better than not done. It's not about perfection. So think to yourself, how can you embed accountability? Of course, there are other ways you can get help. You can get help through friends and family, colleagues, coaches and mentors. Again, I'm a coach. I'm a mentor. I'm somebody who's experienced within the space of independent consulting within the UK, specifically outside IR35 contracting and inside IR35 contracting. Of course, I treat them differently. Inside I treat as contracting and outside I treat as consulting. But maybe you want to get into the space. And if that is the case, then reach out to me. Of course, there is a fee. But if you put your money where your mouth is, then your 2025 or whatever year you're watching this is going to look different. So think about this stuff. There's also virtual assistants. I'm telling you, it's a big, big, big difference that it can make. I'm telling you. The leverage, the intelligence, the partnership that you have in somebody else who has the skills and understanding of what you're trying to get done is a brilliant thing. Of course, we have AI, but humans can never be replaced in that way because the human touch is beautiful. Yes, we can replicate, we can get close to something, but it'll never be the same. So these are all of the things that you want to start thinking about. You want to start aligning yourself to the different types of spaces and schemes that allow you to be great. And so, obviously, as you're doing all this stuff, it's important to make sure that you have some clarity in terms of what you're doing in terms of your goals. I say this because if you have something you're aiming towards, okay, in the program management world, we have something known as a project brief or a project initiation document. And essentially, this document highlights the key elements of making sure that you have something that is viable, that is successful. So essentially, what this looks like is you have some sort of purpose, you have objectives, okay? So these objectives can be SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, or SMARTer. Then outside of those objectives, you also have the scope, which includes success criteria. What must you do? What will you do? What won't you do? And what could you do? And all these different things. And what should you do? The must go analysis. It also highlights the milestones. So these are key stages that you need to get to in order for you to be successful. It talks to the fact that you have deliverables. So these are outputs, so tangible things that you produce in order for you to know that you're actually getting closer to your goal. This is what a deliverable is, as an output. And of course, you highlight potential risks that could come your way, or assumptions that could come your way, or dependencies that you need to be aware of. And then you talk about how you communicate between different stakeholders who are involved in making sure that you're successful. All these things come into play when it comes to the project brief. I say this to say, the more equipped you are in terms of having clarity, the more likely you won't just rely on passion or motivation. So big stuff here, big stuff to bear in mind. Now let's move on to the next bit. So bonus tip. You know we like a little bonus. So the bonus tip comes down to making sure that you clarify your purpose and goal. So it leans on what I'm saying in a bit more detail. Now, how do you do this? How do you make sure that you do this effectively? Now, for me, I've got this thing known as the life navigation system, which I've spoken about on this channel already. And essentially, it is an opportunity for you to understand who you are as a person. So your vision, your mission, your values, who you say you are, what life has taught you so far, your lessons learned, all of these different things, to breaking down what are your key objectives, what are the key routines that you need to do in order for you to meet those objectives. And you literally review this on a 90-day period every quarter. Of course, you have a weekly cadence where you're checking in with, your goals and all this kind of stuff there. You have daily journaling that enables you to reflect. I did a podcast the other day with a very nice lady called Abimbola, and she spoke about something known as reflective intelligence. How do you reflect and how do you learn from your reflections? Very important stuff. So what we're doing is we're understanding self and breaking it down so that we know how to move forward with success. You have your daily journaling, you have your weekly, again, assimilation of that information, you have your monthly check-ins, and then you have your quarterly review. Rinse and repeat until you win. This is how you play the game. And so, again, if anyone's interested in my life navigation template, you can definitely check it out below. It's a Notion template. It's been very useful for me. I'll probably release some journal at some point, but I'm not ready to do that yet. Of course, around this stuff, it makes sense to have people who can support you within this space, for sure. So let's really break things down and summarize. So, of course, passion is not enough. It's fleeting by nature. And really, success is not just focused on passion, like we said, but for me, it's focused on those three things: intelligence, routine, and willpower. Intelligence, routine, and willpower. Ensure that you have created an environment such as schemes to enable strong accountability, and anchor yourself in a clear mission. This is why I talk about crystal clarity in the 5 pillars of mastery. That is part of my framework. So again, if you want to connect with me, make sure to connect with me on LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok, even Instagram as well. Of course, if you want a competitive edge as a business leader in today's current climate, in order for you to boost your portfolio career, again, complete the form below. And of course, if you like videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.